All right, so let's go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
Back to December 1773.
Ooh.
It's Boston. There's a chill in the air. Tensions
Yeah.
are brewing.
Yeah.
And we're talking hotter than a pot of well tea.
Yeah.
We are diving into the Boston Tea Party today.
It's a story I think most people think they know. Colonists dressed up as Native Americans, tea flying into the harbor.
Right.
But it's so much more than that. The reality is much more fascinating.
Exactly. And with the sources that you sent, we've got firsthand accounts, we've got historical analysis,
Wow.
and even a deep dive into the life of this guy, George Hughes.
Okay.
He was a shoemaker who just seemed to be at all the major events in revolutionary Boston.
Huh. Interesting.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
He was. It's amazing how this act of defiance, this tossing tea into the harbor,
Yeah.
was really a carefully orchestrated event.
It was.
And it had some lasting repercussions.
Yeah, so let's set the scene. Boston, December 1773. 3 British ships.
Okay.
They're full of tea.
Right.
They're stuck in the harbor, and they're caught between these British tax laws and colonists who are just refusing to pay.
And this wasn't just about some simple tax.
Right.
It was about a principled taxation without representation.
Yeah.
This was a direct assault in the colonists' eyes on their
Yes.
rights and their freedom.
And these ships, they become like this focal point for all this conflict.
They do.
The colonists won't let them unload the tea. The British governor won't let the ships leave.
Yeah, it's a standoff.
It is total standoff.
And you can just feel the tension.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine this, the Old South Meeting House,
Okay.
the largest building in Boston at the time.
Wow.
It's packed
Yeah.
with over 5,000 people.
Oh, my gosh.
They're in there for hours debating what to do.
Wow.
And the air is so thick with frustration and a
Oh.
sense of impending action.
And then amidst this crowd, you have figures like Samuel Adams,
Oh, yeah.
John Hancock giving these rousing speeches,
Yes.
trying to rally the people. I mean, I can only imagine the energy in that room.
Oh, it must have been electric. And don't forget, this is all happening under the watchful eyes of British warships.
Oh, God.
They're in the harbor.
Yeah.
That threat of force is looming large.
So the clock is ticking.
Yes.
This deadline for unloading the tea is coming up.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Samuel Adams finishes a speech,
Uh-huh.
and suddenly a cry rings out.
Okay.
Boston Harbor, a teapot tonight. Now,
What?
historians debate whether this was like a prearranged signal
Okay.
or if it was a spontaneous outburst, but it's clear that something big is about to happen.
It gives me chills.
Yeah.
So a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans, they head for the docks, right?
They do.
Yeah.
But this wasn't just like some random mob. From what we've gathered from the historical accounts, this was a surprisingly organized operation.
Really?
Leaders, specific tasks, and a clear objective: destroy the tea without causing further damage or harming anyone.
Wow. So they board the ships.
Yes.
342 chests of tea, 46 tons worth,
Yeah.
all dumped into the harbor.
It's over $1 million in today's money,
That's incredible.
which really emphasizes the value of this commodity at the time.
Yeah.
But also the symbolic weight of their actions.
Right.
It wasn't just about the money. It was a calculated act of defiance against British rule.
And what about these Indians? Who were the men behind those disguises?
Well, it seems to have been a diverse group.
Hmm.
Mostly young men, tradesmen, laborers,
Okay.
even some teenagers.
Wow.
It wasn't just the wealthy elite. This was a movement that resonated across social classes.
So not just our stereotypical image of like the founding fathers, all powdered wigs in opulent drawing rooms.
Not at all. And interestingly, the most prominent leaders like Adams and Hancock, they actually stayed behind at the meeting.
Oh.
They had plausible deniability if things went south.
Which is a smart move considering this was a serious crime.
Yeah.
This could be considered treason.
Absolutely. But even though the leaders weren't physically present,
Yeah.
thousands of people still gathered at the wharves to witness this event.
No way.
This wasn't some clandestine operation.
Right.
This was a public spectacle that captured the attention of the entire city.
I can only imagine. The dark harbor, the disguised men, the chests being broken open, all that tea swirling in the water.
And you know what? They were surprisingly disciplined.
Really?
They didn't damage the ships themselves. They even replaced a lock that they broke.
Wow.
It was a very clear message. This is not random destruction. This is targeted resistance.
Okay, so let's talk about those disguises for a moment.
Yeah?
Why Native Americans?
Yeah.
Was it just to hide their identities?
Well, Professor Karp, one of the historians you provided,
Ricky?
he makes a really fascinating argument. He suggests it wasn't just about anonymity, it was about symbolism.
Okay.
They were separating themselves from their European roots,
Right.
embracing this new American identity.
Almost like adopting a symbol of their own, distinct from British rule.
Exactly. And there's also an element of defiance in appropriating this powerful symbol and using it to challenge the established order.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to acknowledge the problematic nature of that choice.
Right. It's appropriating and exploiting the imagery of a culture they were actively displacing and oppressing.
Yes.
It's a reminder that even acts of rebellion can be complex and carry with them this weight of historical injustice.
It's crucial to view these events through a critical lens, recognizing both the heroism and the complexities of the past.
So the tea is in the water. The message has been sent. What happens next?
Whoa.
I mean, this must have had some major repercussions.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the tea's in the harbor. A very expensive message sent.
Right.
But what's the fallout?
Oh, the British were furious.
Yeah, I bet.
This wasn't just a financial loss for the East India Company. It was a direct challenge to their authority. It was a symbolic slap in the face.
Were all the colonists united in celebrating this act of defiance?
No, really. You know, the colonies were far from this monolithic entity. There were those who applauded the Boston Tea Party,
Right.
seeing it as this necessary act of resistance against tyranny.
Mm.
But there were also those who were more moderate or even loyal to the crown, who saw it as reckless and destructive.
So this probably deepened those existing divisions within colonial society.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember the context here. Even before the Tea Party, there was this growing climate of fear and intimidation.
Really?
Merchants who cooperated with the British were often targeted, threatened, even attacked.
What now?
So this event, while largely nonviolent in itself,
Right.
it took place against a backdrop of this simmering unrest.
So the Boston Tea Party was this major turning point, pushing the colonies closer to war.
Precisely. And the British response certainly didn't help matters.
What did they do?
They enacted what became known as the Coercive Acts,
Okay.
a series of punitive measures aimed at punishing Boston and bringing the colony to heel.
Okay, so what did those acts entail? What kind of punishments are we talking about?
Well, one of the most significant was the Boston Port Act.
Okay.
It effectively shut down the entire harbor
Wow.
until the tea was paid for.
Oh my gosh.
This was a devastating blow to Boston's economy,
That must have been.
because you have to remember, it was a major hub for trade and commerce.
Wow, talk about collective punishment. That must have really fueled resentment among the colonists.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just economic pressure.
Okay.
They also passed the Massachusetts Government Act,
Okay.
which stripped the colony of much of its self-governance.
Oh, wow.
This was a direct attack on the very principles of autonomy and self-determination
Yeah.
that the colonists were fighting for.
So the British response is basically just tighten their grip,
Yeah,
which probably just strengthened the resolve of those who were already leaning toward rebellion.
exactly. And you can see how this cycle of action and reaction, this escalation of tensions,
Yeah.
ultimately led to the outbreak of the Revolutionary War just a couple of years later.
You know, this is where I think the story of George Hughes,
Oh, yeah.
the shoemaker, whose account you mentioned, becomes so compelling.
Yeah.
He was like a Forrest Gump of the Revolution, witnessing so many key events firsthand.
He really is a fascinating character. He was there at the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party.
Wow.
He even participated in the tarring and feathering of a British official.
Hold on. Okay, tarring and feathering.
Yes.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
What exactly did that entail?
It was a brutal form of public humiliation and punishment,
Okay.
often used to enforce social norms or punish those seen as betraying the community.
Uh-huh.
They would pour hot tar over someone and then cover them with feathers.
Oh my gosh.
It was incredibly painful,
Yeah.
humiliating,
Yeah.
and a very clear message that you were no longer welcome in that community.
Ouch. It's a reminder that this period wasn't all about these high-minded ideals and eloquent speeches.
Right.
There was this raw, sometimes violent undercurrent to this struggle.
Absolutely. And Hughes' story also highlights how these grand historical events played out in the lives of everyday people. You know, he wasn't a wealthy merchant or a powerful politician, just a shoemaker trying to make a living who was swept up in this tide of history.
It shows us that revolutions are built not just by, these leaders,
Yes.
but by ordinary people willing to take a stand,
Yes.
to risk everything for what they believe in.
Absolutely. And his account written later in life provides valuable insight into how these events were remembered and interpreted by those who lived through them.
Before we move on, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier. The Native American disguise is worn during the Tea Party.
Yes.
Professor Karp argued that it was more about symbolism than just hiding identities, right?
Yes. He suggested it was about creating this distinct American identity, separate from their European past and British rule. But as we mentioned before, it's important to acknowledge the problematic nature of that choice.
Right. It was appropriating and exploiting the imagery of a culture they were actively displacing and oppressing.
Right.
Which is a stark reminder that even acts of defiance can be complicated and fraught with historical baggage.
It underscores the importance of looking at historical events with a critical eye, recognizing both the courage and the complexities, the heroism and the injustices.
So we've got tea in the harbor, colonists are divided, the British are cracking down. What does it all mean?
I think the Boston Tea Party really crystallizes the core conflict at the heart of the American Revolution.
Okay.
It boils down to these fundamental questions. Who has the right to govern?
Right.
Who has the right to tax? Who has the right to represent the people?
These are questions about freedom.
Yes.
About self-determination.
Exactly.
And they resonate just as strongly today
They do.
as they did back then.
The Boston Tea Party reminds us that the fight for those ideals
Yeah.
is rarely easy or straightforward.
Right.
It takes time, persistence,
Yeah.
and a willingness to stand up for what you believe in,
Right.
even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds.
And sometimes it takes a bold, even shocking act to capture the world's attention
It
and
does.
spark a movement. The Boston Tea Party certainly did that.
It also demonstrates that history isn't some static thing confined to textbooks and museums. It shapes our present and continues to influence our future.
I love that.
The debates sparked by the Tea Party about representation, taxation, the limits of government power, these are all issues we still grapple with today.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
We've uncovered so much, the context, the action, the fallout.
We have.
But there's always more to explore, isn't there?
Yeah. It really is amazing to consider how this one event, tossing all that tea into the harbor, had such a ripple effect, not just on Boston, but on the entire course of history.
It's really a testament to the power of symbolism, a bold act of defiance that captured the imagination and fueled this growing movement for independence.
And it's a story that continues to resonate today. I mean, you see images of the Boston Tea Party everywhere.
Everywhere.
On T-shirts and political cartoons. It's even invoked by modern-day protest movements.
It's become this enduring symbol of resistance against tyranny.
Right. Of standing up for what you believe in,
Yeah.
even when it means breaking the law.
Which brings up an interesting point. The Boston Tea Party was technically an illegal act. It forces us to consider the role of civil disobedience in a democracy.
Right.
When is it justified to break the law to bring about change?
That's a question that is still hotly debated today.
It is.
We see it in movements like Black Lives Matter, climate activism, all sorts of contemporary protests where people are willing to break the law to face arrest in order to bring attention to what they see as injustice.
And the Boston Tea Party provides this historical lens through which to view these modern struggles.
It does.
It reminds us that the fight for justice and equality, it's rarely neat and tidy.
No.
It can be messy, confrontational, and sometimes even dangerous.
Absolutely. And those who dare to challenge the status quo, to disrupt that established order, they're often met with resistance, backlash, and even violence.
The Boston Tea Party is this stark reminder that progress is rarely achieved without sacrifice and struggle.
Yeah, it teaches us that change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time, persistence, a willingness to keep pushing forward, even when the odds seem insurmountable.
It's easy to think of history as something fixed.
Yeah.
Something that happened long ago and has no bearing on our lives today.
Right.
But the Boston Tea Party shows us that history is alive.
It is.
It's still shaping our present and influencing our future.
Absolutely. The questions it raised about representation, about taxation, about the limits of government power, these are questions that are still relevant.
They are.
Still being debated, still shaping our political landscape.
And that spirit of the Boston Tea Party, that spirit of defiance, of standing up for what you believe in it, continues to inspire people around the world.
It does.
To fight for a more just and equitable society.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the Boston Tea Party, I think it's important to remember that it wasn't just about tea. It was about so much more.
Yeah.
About freedom, about representation, about the very nature of power and who wields it.
It was a turning point in history,
Mm.
a spark that ignited a revolution and ultimately led to the birth of a new nation.
Yes,
But it's also a story filled with nuance, with complexity,
it is.
with these enduring questions about what it means to fight for justice
Yes.
and what price we're willing to pay for freedom.
And while we've explored the colonists' perspective in depth,
Right.
there's another side to this story that's worth considering.
Oh, okay.
How did the British government and people justify their actions? What were their motivations?
That's a great point. It would be fascinating to delve into the other side of this historical coin,
Right.
to understand the British perspective on the events leading up to the American Revolution.
Perhaps that's a deep dive for another time. There's always more to explore.
Exactly. And for all of you listening, we encourage you to keep digging, keep exploring.
Yeah.
Delve deeper into the lives of those everyday revolutionaries like George Hughes.
Absolutely.
Research the perspectives of those loyal to the crown.
Yes.
History is full of these fascinating stories waiting to be discovered.
And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity,
Yes.
let us know. Share your thoughts, your insights,
Yeah.
and tell us what other historical mysteries you'd like us to unravel.
That's right. And don't forget to subscribe to the Deep Dive so you can join us on our next journey into this fascinating world of history.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yes.
and keep those minds engaged.
We'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.